Hafiz ibn Hibban, rahimahullah ta'ala, began his book with the first principle being the principle of taqwa, which is that principle which drives every other success. Once the heart is correct, once the qibla is correct, once the compass and moral compass is in the right direction, then inshallah the rest of the body, the rest of the mind, the rest of the life follows suit. He then went into the second principle, which was the principle of knowledge, that once you have your path and once you know where you want to go, you know the destination, now you need to know how to get there. And for that, you need to have the knowledge of deen, you need to have the knowledge of right and wrong, halal and haram. He then moves on to the third principle, that once you know where you want to go and you have the light to get there and the directions to get there, then it is important for you to be able to know that you need to use your words intelligently, because the tongue is the biggest cause of a person's downfall and a person's loss and a person's destruction in dunya and akhirah. Then Hafiz ibn Hibban goes on to the fourth principle, which was actually a more detailed aspect of principle 3, which is specifically discussing and targeting honesty and integrity. Excuse me. Hafiz ibn Hibban now moves and comes into the principle number 3, which is modesty and shamelessness. Modesty, the encouragement towards modesty, bashfulness, and decency, and staying away from being just give me a second, I'll just pull up my slides here. And yes, shamelessness and immodesty, immoral behavior, staying away from those kind of things. Brothers and sisters, this whole course and this whole book is designed to basically prepare a person for ultimate success in their life. Success in their relationships, success in their careers, success with Allah, success with akhirah, success with their children, success as being a good human being overall in general. So what does modesty and shamelessness have to do with this whole thing? Actually, it is at the very core of this whole discussion, subhanallah. And this hadith you see in front of you, as we know, Hafiz ibn Hibban at the beginning of every chapter brings a hadith of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam to start off the discussion. And this hadith is a very famous hadith of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu says, "Inna mimma adraka an-nasu min kalam an-nubuwwati al-ula idha lam tastahi fasna' ma shi't." That it is from the very first words and advices and counsel of the prophets, from the very first words and the first counsel that prophets came with, and which they all have been common in, all prophets, not just Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but from the very first words that have been recorded of the prophets is إِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَحِ فَاصْنَعْ مَا شِئْتَ. That if you do not have shame and you do not have modesty, فَاصْنَعْ مَا شِئْتَ, then do as you please. Do as you please. Subhanallah. This hadith is perhaps explaining two things. The first is that if you don't have the covering and the buffer and the protection of shame and decency in your life and good sense, then you will do as you please. And there is nothing that's going to stop you. It is our prudence, it is our conscience that stops us from saying things, from doing things, because our conscience pricks us that this is not the right thing to say. But if someone doesn't care about anything, and as you know, mashallah, the Australian saying goes, stuff it, So if we got that attitude that, who cares, then we might as well do anything, act anyhow, and speak anyhow, go anywhere, do anything, eat anything, dress in any way, and have no restrictions, because we are not concerned about anything. So this hadith encapsulates that if you don't have that that protection, that covering of shame in your life and modesty, then you can act and immorally and do as whatever you like, just do. Also, it could mean, brothers and sisters, that it's a threat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah is watching. If you don't have modesty and you don't keep yourself with good, decent habits and manners, then remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching everything that we do. So these are the two meanings which come from this hadith. Now, brothers and sisters, also this question might come to your mind, that what does intelligence, wisdom have to do with modesty? It has everything to do with modesty, because the opposite is true, that when somebody is not in their senses, somebody is perhaps, for example, intoxicated, or they're not in their full senses, this is when they lose all inhibitions and they lose all moral boundaries, and they will act in a way which normally they won't act. So when they lose their mind, when they lose their senses because of intoxication, or in terms of whatever else it might be, anger or anything else which covers the intellect, which covers the reasoning, and a person doesn't have good judgment and can't think well, then a person acts in any way. And there's a beautiful story, very insightful story to make us understand this. It is mentioned in the Bani Israel that there was a pious person, and there was a certain person, a certain woman who was attracted to him and wanted him. So the only way she could get to him was to involve him in some sin, in some accusation, so to bring him down, and then she could, have her way, and she could get together with him. So she hired the services of a slave girl, and she told him, go and tell this person, we want to speak to him, we want him to witness something. And they called him. When he came, they locked all the doors, and they said, now you will not be allowed to leave from this place. You are a prisoner here unless you do one of three things. There's alcohol here, there was a baby there, and there was a woman there. He said, either you drink this alcohol, or you kill this baby, or you commit an indecent, immoral act with this woman. So he looked at the three things: taking intoxicants, murder, zina. So in his mind, and perhaps in all of our minds, we would have thought, that taking alcohol is the lightest of all the three. So he took and he drank the alcohol, and he drank the khamar and the intoxicants and the wine, and then he asked for some more, and then he asked for some more, until, subhanallah, the hadith says he ended up killing the child, and he ended up committing zina as well. So this is what happens when a person's mind is covered and the good judgment is lost, wisdom is lost. This is when modesty also goes and shamelessness comes. In terms of the wisdoms that are mentioned regarding this topic, Ibn Hibban rahimahullah radiyallahu anhu says that shame, we must understand, is a natural source of intelligence. It is the seed of all good, the seed of all good. If by nature a person is bashful, a person is shy, a person is shameful, a person is modest, then that will stop a person from many, many bad things, from saying many bad things, from doing many bad things, just by being modest. Therefore, brothers and sisters, if we have a child in our home who by nature is a little bit shy, a little bit timid, a little bit modest, that's not something that we should feel, upset about, or we should feel as a defect. No, we should encourage it, say, mashallah, this is a good habit. This is a good thing you have. Yes, teaching them confidence, teaching them to speak out their feelings is a separate thing. But in itself, in essence, modesty, bashfulness, shyness is a good thing, and it should be maintained. And it's a seed of all good. Ibn Hibban says, to the origin of intelligence and wisdom is modesty. and to leave it and to move away from modesty and from decency is the origin of all ignorance, and it is the seed of all evil. And modesty shows and indicates to the intelligence of a person, just as not having modesty and not being shameful shows to the ignorance of a person. Subhanallah. He goes on to give the definition of modesty. What is that? What does modesty mean? Al-haya, as is known in Arabic and as is known in the hadith, al-haya. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, al-haya'u shu'batun min al-iman. Modesty is a branch from the branches of faith. It is a sign of iman. It is a sign of iman if a person has modesty. What is the definition of modesty? The definition of modesty, Ibn Hibban says, rahimahullah, al-haya'u ismun. It is such a thing, yushtamalu ala mujanabatil makruhi min al-khisal, that a person avoids unagreeable practices. By a person avoids or tries to avoid unagreeable practices, number one. Another definition also has that in being modest, a person tries to fulfill their dues to everybody. So whatever rights is on top of them, the rights of their husband, the rights of their wife, the rights of their children, the rights of their friend, the rights of their parents, the rights of the community members, the rights of the guests, whatever rights are on top of them or due on them in Sharia, it is because of decency and modesty they fulfill those rights. They don't want to be questioned about any rights which are on them. If their rights are not fulfilled, that's irrelevant in the sense of their duties. They are so particular about their duties just because they are decent and modest. They don't want to be questioned that did you fulfill your right or not. Therefore, they go out of their way to fulfill all their rights which are due upon them. And as I said, the first definition is that they avoid unagreeable practices. He brings an example and he says, we can understand it like this as well, that haya is like the bark of a tree. And he brings a poet which says, إِذَا لَمْ تَخْشَ عَاقِبَةَ اللَّيَالِ وَلَمْ تَسْتَحِي فَاصْنَعْ مَا تَشَاءُ. If you don't have any concern about consequences, you don't care what's going to happen, what's the result of anything, then you might as well do as you wish. فَلَا وَاللَّهِ مَا فِي الْعَيْشِ خَيْرٌ وَلَا الدُّنْيَا إِذَا ذَهَبَ الْحَيَاءُ. He says, by Allah, there is no goodness in life. There is no goodness in life and in this world when modesty is gone. If modesty is gone, then you might as well live as an animal. And a person can do anything as an animal, has no restrictions. يَعِيشُ الْمَرْءُ مَسْتَحْيَاءُ بِخَيْرٍ. A person will live as in a good case, in a good condition and circumstance, as long as they have the covering of haya. And he gives the example, وَيَبْقَ الْعُودُ مَا بَقِيَ اللِّحَاءُ. Just as the tree is protected from insects, the tree is protected from fire, the tree is protected from diseases, as long as the bark is on it. As soon as the bark sheds or is taken off, now the trunk of the tree is exposed to deficiencies, to all the elements. Likewise, haya is a covering on a human being, that bashfulness, shame and modesty, decency is a covering on a human being. If they lose that modesty, then they might as well do anything. As you see the last point on the slide, bashfulness brings with it honor. And this, as you know, mashallah, this is a very famous quality of Uthman radiallahu anh, that he was immensely, very shy, very bashful, very shameful person, in the sense of he had a lot of shame in him and he would be very decent. So one day Rasulullah was sitting and relaxing on the wall of a well, and his garment was up to his, below his knee, but his shin could be seen. His shin was open, alayhi salatu wasalam, his blessed shin. And then there was a knock on the door, and he asked, who's it? And Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu came in, and Rasulullah remained sitting in that position in the company of Abu Bakr. And then Umar radiallahu anhu came in and asked permission to come, and then he sat down, and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam continued in that same relaxed condition. And then Uthman radiallahu anhu asked permission to come in. When he asked permission to come in, before Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave him permission to come in, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam covered his shin. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam covered his shin and sat down. Straightened himself out and sat down. And it was asked of him that Abu Bakr and Umar have come and you have not changed your condition. Now Uthman is coming. Why are you doing this? So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, don't you know that Uthman is so bashful that even the angels in the heavens have modesty with him, and they treat him with honor. So therefore I will also treat him like this. So bashfulness, modesty, if a person is modest, shy, that brings with itself honor. People then treat this person with respect, with dignity. But if a person is vulgar, a person doesn't have doesn't have shame, and they speak anyhow, they swear, they curse, they make vulgar jokes, they take the honor of anyone. When people sit with them, their friends, they treat them in the same way. They talk to them in the same way, without any respect, without any dignity. So bashfulness, good decency and shyness brings with it honor and respect. People treat us according to that as well. The warnings which come in the book of Hafiz ibn Hibban in terms of what happens if a person doesn't have haya. He says the absence of haya and modesty is a most blameworthy thing. It is the cause of the most blameworthy thing in insan, in humankind. He says, al-amu shay'in fil mu'mini al-fuhsh. The most blameworthy thing in a mu'min's life is that they should have immoral and shamelessness, be immoral and shameless. You wouldn't blame or you wouldn't criticize anything as much as you would criticize something like this. This is important for us to know, especially in terms of our children. We are there to make their tarbiyah, to guide them, to teach them, to nurture them. And we will correct them whenever we see something that needs to be corrected. But specifically when there is aspects of morality, decency, this is something that we should take particular interest, more so than anything else. As we say, it can be criticized more than anything else. He says that modesty is the protection from sin. Once a person has modesty, a person can be protected from so many sins, just by being modest. They might not necessarily be a very pious person. Now I'm making a distinction here. There might not be a person who prays a lot of nafil or voluntary acts. There might not be a person who gives a lot of nafil or voluntary sadaqah, charity. There might not be a person who does a lot of extra additional acts. But just by the mere fact of having modesty in their life, that stops them from many sins. So that is very good, that their good deeds might not be many, but they are protecting their good deeds. Their good deeds are preserved and they are not losing their good deeds. Because what happens, sometimes people do a lot of good deeds. Some of us, we do a lot of good deeds, but because of the sins and the mistakes that we do, a lot of those good deeds get wasted out and the effect of it is not achieved. And it is better sometimes to do less good deeds but stay away from sin, then you get the actual effect of the good deeds and the spirituality is felt and it's not lost. The effect is not lost. And he brings a beautiful poem here of this, explaining this. He says, وَرُبَّ قَبِيحَةٍ مَا حَالَ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَ رُكُوبِهَا إِلَّا الْحَيَاءُ. That it is possible and perhaps many evil things. An obstacle was created, a barrier of haya and modesty came between me and many bad things that I didn't say that because I felt shy, or I didn't go there because I couldn't, or I didn't, eat this because I felt it wasn't right. My conscience didn't allow me. This is Iman. Conscience, if it is done by a mu'min, is Iman. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Al-haya'u shu'batun min al-Iman. Haya is a branch of Iman. Conscience, good sense, good decency is a branch of the branches of Iman. So if we are doing it, that means there's a sign that we have Iman. He goes on to say, فَكَانَ هُوَ الدَّوَاءُ لَهَا وَلَكِنْ إِذَا ذَهَبَ الْحَيَاءُ فَلَا دَوَاءَ. That the protection and medicine, the medicine and cure for all ills and all sins is modesty. That if a person has modesty, even if they are alone in a room, in the house, in the darkest of place where nobody is with them, but they will have modesty that, now, how can I do something like this? How can I say something like this? How can I look at something like this? How can I talk something like this? This is the cure for many ills. Then he says, if there is no modesty and there is no morality, then there is no cure. There is no medicine. A person now will just do as he pleases and he will be sick. And that sickness will just grow, and that sickness will just spread as a cancer spreads. And Allah protect us. Number 3, brothers and sisters, we've touched on it. A conscience is useful. Maintain it. Teach it. If our children have it, encourage it. If they have a conscience, encourage it. Of course, as I said, teaching them confidence is separate to this. Teaching them to have good self-esteem is separate to this. But let us maintain this good conscience, good shyness, bashfulness is a quality of Iman, and it should be maintained. The loss of haya, Hafiz ibn Hibban mentions, leads to being a lost cause. And how many times we say that this person can't be helped? No matter what you tell them, no matter what you do for them, no matter what you explain to them, it doesn't make sense to them. So it's a lost cause. There's no benefit in talking to them. And Allah protect us, protect our children from ever reaching that stage, because it's common. Many people do reach that stage before they make many mistakes in life, and then only after those mistakes they turn back and they understand. And Allah protect our children from that. Sometimes these things come out of our tongue also, that we say, you don't want to listen, you don't want to learn, you're going to learn the hard way. Allah protect us from this, inshallah, that we shouldn't even say these things, even by mistake. Because if that case comes that a person can't learn, and then they make mistakes, and then they learn the hard way, alhamdulillah, even if they learn, that's also a rahmah, that's also something from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's a mercy in disguise, ultimately. But it's always better to learn these things or to know these things before actually going. And this is where we as parents play a pivotal role in guiding our next generation, and our children, inshallah. He brings a poem to explain the aspect of the loss of haya being a lost cause. He says, إِذَا رُزِقَ الْفَتَى وَجْهًا وَقَاحًا. When a young man is given an immoral or indecent face, meaning he does as he wishes, تَقَلَّبَ فِي الْأُمُورِ كَمَا يَشَاءُ. He will end up doing as he wishes in different cases. وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لِلدَّوَاءِ وَلَا لِشَيْءٍ. There is no cure for him and nothing that can treat him. يُعَالِجُهُ فِيهِ غَنَاءُ. That will help in curing him. فَمَا لَكَ فِي مُعَاتَبَةِ الَّذِي. Here's this part. He says, there is no benefit in even talking to them, even advising such a person. There is no outcome, no consequence. Because you can advise a person who has a conscience, someone who's going to think, someone who's going to reflect, can advise the person, look, this, if you do this, this will happen, this will be the outcome, this will be, the consequences of it, this will be the result. If you do this, this will be the good results. If you do this, this will be the bad results. So the person will go, think about it, reflect. But if a person has lost that capacity as well, that the thought, the wisdom and the haya is gone to such an extent that they don't care what anyone thinks. They don't care what anyone says. So this is also an important point, brothers and sisters. I'll just interject here before I finish this poem. Many people say you shouldn't care what people say. You shouldn't care what people think. Actually, it's part of Iman to be considerate of public opinion. But public opinion, of course, based on what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. Not public opinion on the disobedience of Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is number one. But after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well, the consideration of the opinion of my parents, the opinion of my wife, the opinion of my husband, the opinion of my children about me is important. And that should be taken into consideration. And there is nothing in Islam to say, I don't care what people think and I don't care what people say. No, that is an important aspect, because as coming back to this point, if that aspect is not there, if a person doesn't care what people say and a person doesn't care what people think, then the person will speak to people as he wishes and he will act with people as he wants, because he doesn't care about any consequences or any opinion or anything like this. So he will go around destroying all his relationships. And like this, the whole fabric of society, every marriage will fall apart, every household will fall apart, every child will be thrown out, every child will be disowned, every child will run away from home, and Allah protect us. So we need to be considerate of each other as well, and each other in the sense of what is overall good. So he says, there is no benefit in advising or reproaching someone who doesn't have haya. Only suffer, you'll only suffer, you'll only get tired, you'll only exhaust yourself, you'll only waste your time. But that it won't make any sense to that person, because they've lost that filter, they've lost that that cover of haya, and now nothing is making sense to them. The last aspect that we're discussing today, brothers and sisters, is some of the aspects of the instructions and understanding haya a little bit more and how to develop it in our lives. Hafiz ibn Hibban first of all brings the aspects of what types of haya there are. He's mentioned that there are two types of modesty, and it connects with what I was just speaking about now. And that is, number one, he says, when a person has modesty with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, number one. And the other one is modesty with the creation. Modesty with Allah and modesty with the creation. He explains modesty with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is shame with Allah, shame from Allah is that a person, Allah yaraka maulaka haythu nahaka, that your Rabb, your Mawla, your master does not see you doing anything or being in a condition in which he has prohibited you from being. He stopped you from being in that position. He's told you don't do this, or don't go this, or don't say this, or don't wear this, or don't eat this. So in anything that he's asked you not to do, he should not see you in that condition. This is haya. This is modesty, that my Allah should not see me in this condition. This is haya with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In fact, it comes in the hadith, and this is the sahih hadith, specifically about this word of haya. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told the Sahaba, "Istahyu min Allahi haqqal haya." Have haya, be modest and have shame from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the right of shame, the right of haya. So the Sahaba said, we told Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Inna lanastahi walhamdulillah." We have shame, alhamdulillah. We have shame, we have modesty, and all praises to Allah. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "No, I'm not speaking about this. Perhaps shame in the sense of covering our body. So I have modesty. I'll cover my body. I won't walk around, half naked, or I won't, So they took it in that sense that we have modesty. We are shameful people, We are not animals. We don't act like animals. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "No, laysa dhalik. I'm not speaking about this modesty. I'm speaking about walakinna al-istihya min Allah, But modesty or shamefulness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that you protect the head and all the thoughts which go through your head. You try and be aware of what you are thinking about. You protect the stomach and everything that is in the stomach. And you remember the death and the trials which are coming after death. Allahu Akbar. Three things. This is the true modesty, a true shame from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number one, you protect the mind, the body and your thoughts from everything which is haram. You protect your stomach from everything which is haram. And you remember the death that is going to come, and you remember the time when you will meet your Creator. This is having true fear from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or true haya and modesty from Allah. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam finishes off the hadith and says, whoever seeks the akhirah, whoever is intending the akhirah with everything that they do, and they avoid or turn away from the attractions and temptations of this world, whoever has done these things, then that person indeed has shown the true modesty with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They've protected their thoughts, they've protected their stomachs, what they see, what they think about, they consider what they eat, they think about meeting Allah in death, and they plan for their akhirah. They work towards their akhirah and they don't get lost in this world. If they do these four things, then they have, a fear from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the first kind of haya and modesty. The second kind of haya and modesty is from the makhluk, from the creation, and we spoke about this. The shame from doing things which are socially unacceptable. So if society doesn't accept it, it's regarded as dirty, it's regarded as filthy, or it's regarded as immoral, or it's regarded as, and Islam also doesn't regard it, Islam also regards it accordingly. Then likewise, it will mean that if a person stays away from this and avoids this, this person also has haya. Then Hafiz ibn Hibban gives us a very beneficial frame. He says the method of developing haya and how you can, what kind of mindset you could have in developing modesty. He brings a hadith of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he says, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave an advice to Sa'id bin Yazid al-Azdi. He said, he asked Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam for advice. Oh Nabi Allah, advise me. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Usika an tastahi min Allah. I advise you to have modesty with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to have shame, to exercise shame with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be bashful and to be decent. Kama tastahi min ar-rajul salih. As you have modesty with a righteous person, a good person, when you meet, for example, an elder of your family, your father, how you act with the imam of the masjid, how you act with an alim, how you act in front of somebody who is senior to you, how you communicate, how you act in front of that person. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Kama tastahi, as you act with a senior person, a pious person, a righteous person, have the same kind, have that mindset and have that same frame of mind when you are dealing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how you won't be vulgar in front of a person, a respectable person, how you will, you will treat the person honorably, how you won't do anything which will annoy the person, you won't say anything, you won't just do anything, you will be conscious. You will be conscious about what you are doing, how you are sitting, how you are dressing. You will see your clothes are neat, your clothes are clean. All of these kind of things, when you're sitting with a respectable person, in the same way, when you deal with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you should be conscious about yourself, your surroundings, what you are saying, what you are doing. This is haya. And this is the method of developing that haya. Hafiz ibn Hibban also breaks this down further. He says, normally when a person is, with pets or with his children or with his friends, he's more in a relaxed, mode, and there's not so much formality. But when he's with someone senior, there's a certain formality in place. And when that formality comes, that is modesty. A person is now exercising a certain amount of discernment. He's discerning. He is now, thinking about what he does, how he does, and he's fulfilling, he's measuring himself. He's thinking about what he's doing, and he's filtering through. Should I do this? Shouldn't I do this? Should I say this? Shouldn't I say this? In the same way, a person should, approach his relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the last point on the slide, brothers and sisters, is that Hafiz ibn Hibban mentions, وَإِذَا كُنْتَ تَأْتِي الْمَرْءُ تُعْظِمُ حَقَّهُ, that when you come and you find a person and you treat this person with respect and honor and you give them the dead dues, وَيَجْهَلُ مِنْكَ الْحَقِّ, but this person in return has no haya with you, has no modesty with you, and they talk to you anyhow, and they are vulgar with you, and they treat you immodestly without any shame, and they don't have any respect for you. He says, فَالصَّرْمُ أَوْسَعُ, then disassociate with this person. This is better for you. Here it doesn't mean no, make sabr and go through it, and no, disassociate yourself with this person. Don't continue a relationship with this person, because by staying with a shameless person who does not know how to fulfill the rights of others, does not know how to respect others, either you, of course, you will bear the brunt of this, and also you will pick up these bad habits, and you will lose your respect in the meantime, and you will learn bad habits of how to treat other people. So this is that aspect, brothers and sisters, of haya, which Hafiz ibn Hibban brings as principle number 5 in this journey of wisdom. That if a person has intelligence and good sense, and they want to be successful in their life, successful with their families, successful as an individual, successful in their objectives, successful, and they want to achieve their objectives of dunya, in their careers, in their akhirah, they want to get Jannah, and they want to be overall a good human being, then the principle number 5 will be that they would have to learn modesty, bashfulness, shame, and that would be the guiding light which will stop them from sinning, from doing things, stalking anyhow, and managing themselves and understanding and discerning before they do anything. Alhamdulillah, this brings us to the end of this discussion and this chapter and this principle. Before you go, brothers and sisters, or before we part ways today and before we meet for next week, just a reminder, inshallah, to everybody here that